Ooh, you thought. What's up, everybody? Coach Mills here, coming at you with a brand new Overwatch video. In this video, we're going to talk about the brand new Overwatch meta, and we're going to be breaking down an Overwatch tier list so that you know exactly what characters are dominant right now, because we've been seeing a lot of movement since all the big changes that have been happening behind the scenes, all the patches that have been happening, stacking on top of each other. Some of the former best characters to play are no longer that good, and we're seeing a completely new meta, so we got to break all that down so you don't miss out. But then go to the GameLeap website in the links down below for high-quality advanced hero guides over every single hero on this list. If you want to set yourself up for success, climb the ladder with ease, then do yourself a favor. Go check it out in the links down below. But without further ado, let's jump into the video. Now, the first thing that we got to talk about is, of course, the tanks. But before we get into that, I need to talk about the meta as a whole, because the meta has dramatically shifted towards Rein, Zarya brawl. We're seeing the top 4 picks being Rein, Zarya, Baptiste, Lucio. Spoiler alert for the supports, but this is the baseline for a brawl composition, and typically the DPS that is played with this is McCree to stop any shenanigans like a wrecking ball, for instance. And this is absolutely insane. I'm so happy that Rein Zarya is back, and it's seeing the most amount of play in Grandmaster according to these statistics, and pretty much every single rank Rein Zarya is at the top. So if you're looking for 2 tanks to learn this competitive season or play, Rein Zarya are probably going to be your best bet. Learning how to play one or both is going to set yourself up for success the most this competitive meta. But here's some tips that you should understand about both, just general playstyles for those of you who haven't played Rein Zarya in a long time. First off, let's talk about our man Johnny Reinhardt Sins. And Reinhardt is a character that has so much impact over the course of a game. The first thing that you need to make sure you do every single time you're playing Reinhardt is balancing your shield with your base health. I've repeated this a lot, but you got to make sure that you don't end up on the front line when you have no shield. That's just going to get you killed very easily. You got to understand that it's okay to take some amount of damage as long as it doesn't kill you. When you get up to that front line and have that shield, you can get healed up behind your own shield, and your DPS can do damage from behind your shield without taking damage themselves. On top of that, you need to be trying to hit every single fire strike. It's typically best to aim at the other Reinhardt center shield and slide it along natural cover so that you can easily slide that in. Get ult charge, get faster ultimates, and then you got to be careful of Zarya bubbles that can block your shatter, and then the Rein 1v1 game, which, by the way, I can break that entire concept down in a separate video. So if you want to win every single shatter war between a Reinhardt and just body Reins over and over again, definitely let me know in the comments down below and smash that like, and I'll be sure to get on that video. But then moving on to Zarya. Zarya is all about enabling her Reinhardt, allowing the Reinhardt to go in, get swings, building charge herself. She goes in as a cycle, so once the Rein goes in, she bubbles that Rein, then she'll take his place for a little bit, do some damage on the front line, bubble herself in and out. She wants to make sure that she's never pushing forward when she doesn't have a self bubble, and that she's always bubbling her Rein. It's like a yo-yo, back and forth, back and forth. Y'all like WWE tag teaming into the front of the pack. But the next important thing that you need to understand about Zarya is that graviton surges are a way that you can definitely win team fights, but you got to be careful with a couple things. First off is Reinhardt shatter. If you grab the entire enemy team, he's going to want to shatter you. You can block that with your bubble if your Reinhardt cannot, so that's just something to keep in the back of your mind. Immortality field can keep the enemy team alive through your graviton. That's also important. And then B is the last thing. But with enough focus fire, and if you have your Reinhardt, you can still burst through that B, or your Rein can build shatter off the enemies that are grabbed, and he can shatter the enemy team even after beat is faded. So that's just some important things to keep in mind. As a last tip on Zarya, just realize that you don't have to get overly greedy with your graviton. If you get 3 people in your graviton and kill them all, you're going to win the team fight. If you get 2 and none of your teammates die, you're going to win the team fight. You don't need to get these crazy 6-man grabs, and sometimes because the enemy is all stacked together with all these hills, all this sustain, it's actually worse than grabbing isolated targets. So just keep that in mind generally, unless you have an ult combo. That might not be the best course of action, and getting too greedy means you're not going to get off as many gravitons when you just really needed to win that team fight. Right now, let's talk about some other options. Some of the other tanks are viable. Of course, Roadhog is always viable in the lower ranks, so is Winston. Sigma's going to be a pretty hard one to play, even in Grandmaster. He doesn't see that much play, and honestly, Honestly, he is really, really hard to play at the lower ranks. I would not suggest playing Sigma at all, but Wrecking Ball is definitely fine. Wrecking Ball can abuse Zarya, Reinhardt. You just got to be a little bit careful of CC, depending on how much CC the enemy is running. But if you have a Wrecking Ball with like an Echo, an Ashe, a Tracer, a Widow, Wrecking Ball can definitely still get some value. We've talked about Wrecking Ball a lot in the previous one of these meta tier lists, so I'm not going to harp on him too much. But let's move on to the DPS. Let's talk about the DPS options for those of you who are a little bit bloodthirsty. And the best DPS right now by far is McCree. Doesn't matter what rank you're in, McCree is just the best right now because he can deal with all the BS like Wrecking Ball. He got that CC, he can protect his supports, and with the Rein being the most played, having a Rein to stand behind and a Zarya to stand behind your Rein, you're standing behind both of them. That is just a really solid frame. You got the support of a Baptiste and a Lucio. McCree is going to be able to dish out a ton of damage, stop enemies from diving in, and he's just the perfect type of DPS that wants to play right with his team. He doesn't want to go on these crazy flanks. Most of the time, there's going to be some opportunities when you could get some value out of it, and I've done flank guides in the past. You can go check those out if you're interested in that. But most of the time, you're going to want to be playing right behind your Rein, right behind your Zarya, right in front of your supports, right sandwiched between your entire team, just dishing out damage, stopping enemies from killing your supports, and that's pretty much all you're going to be doing on McCree. Reliable, consistent, and you're going to do just fine. Now, let's talk about some of the other options. I'm going to name two of them here. First off is Tracer. Tracer's still incredibly good. Of course, Tracer's going to be better the more skill you have. It's going to be better in the higher ranks. A lot harder to get solid impact on Tracer than something like McCree, but the plus side is when you're playing against supports like Lucio, Bap, less Briggs, you're seeing some Zens here and there, Reinhardt, Zarya, Tracer has a little bit less to worry about. Only that McCree, and if the enemy team has a Hanzo, those are the things that she has to worry about. But if you're playing with a Wrecking Ball, Tracer can be absolutely amazing, and she still can combo with the Zarya, right? Grab, Pulse Bomb is still very consistent. So all in all, Tracer's still pretty good and can get a lot of value for her weight or for her pick. And then the last character I'm going to talk about in the DPS category is Hanzo. Hanzo's amazing right now, honestly. When you're seeing a lot of Rein and Zarya, and when you're seeing a lot of McCree, Hanzo can break the Reinhardt shield quicker, and he can combo with the Zarya with Grab Dragon, which is pretty much the best go-to combo in the game right now. Very, very consistent. You got to make sure that you bait out Baptiste's Immortality Field or get an off angle so you can challenge it with your Storm Arrow. That's very important. But being able to give your Zarya the walls, the Sonic, so that she can set up that Graviton either through a wall or just can jiggle behind a cubby or like a natural cover, grab the enemy team, and then you do the Grab Dragon. That's just something that is going to be really nice, reliable, like I said, and you can put a lot of pressure on the enemy McCree because you could play slightly outside of his range. So Hanzo is probably the next character I would suggest you to play if you're not playing McCree. Tracer, like I said, could be a little bit difficult, and she can struggle sometimes up against good McCrees and good Hanzos, but Hanzo is going to be a pretty reliable pick, and I think he's very strong right now. Definitely what I would suggest besides McCree in the current meta. Then we go to the next types of characters that we got to talk about is the supports. And I already mentioned them previously. Baptiste and Lucio are the top spots, followed by Zenyatta. But remember, Zenyatta is going to fall off past Grandmaster. So while we're looking at the Grandmaster pick grades, Zenyatta being up here with Grandmaster Skill, Grandmaster Peel, Grandmaster Teams, not always gonna work out the same when you're in plat and you don't have anyone that cares about your well-being in any way. And for that reason, I think Baptiste and Lucio are probably just gonna be better. Now, something that you need to understand about Baptiste is you should often be playing for really fast amplification matrices. And I'm talking really, really fast. You're gonna get it super fast when your Rein and Zarya are going in aggressively and you're just pumping them with heals. You're gonna build up that amplification matrix faster than any other ult on the board, and if you use it immediately, it can be the deciding factor of the entire team fight. Now, it is important for you to coordinate or communicate with your team when your ultimate is coming up. You don't want your Reinhardt to waste his Fire Strike when he could have waited a couple of seconds and used it with your ultimate, and you don't want your teammates to go in too aggressively when they can just play for your ultimate and then really put the gas pedal on. So definitely coordinate, talk with your team, make sure that you're timing this correctly, and it's even better if you can time in some sort of hyper aggression with like an immortality field at the same time. Overwhelm the enemy, break their shield, break their bubbles, go in really aggressively, but you got to communicate that. And then Lucio on top of that. Lucio, your job in this composition is of course speeding your Rein and Zarya in and out of combat, getting them in when they want to chase down the enemy, and then getting them out when they are low on resources. That's why it's really important for Lucio to know when his Zarya has bubbles, know when his Reinhardt has a certain amount of shield, and some amount of communication between this three is really important. Now, the next thing that you can do is, of course, just make sure that your McCree stays alive. If your McCree is, you know, safe, if he stays alive, especially if the enemies are playing untraditional things or like divers, like let's say the enemy is playing like a Tracer or an Echo or a Doomfist or a Genji. If you as Lucio make sure you keep your McCree alive, those characters are going to be very ineffective. But if you ever leave that McCree alone to fend for himself and he gets like double dove and he dies, now all of a sudden y'all got to deal with all these really dangerous dive threats, and y'all don't have any like stun CC to deal with them. So that's just important for you to change your playstyle a little bit. And then of course, if the enemies are like rocking something like double sniper or whatever, you can go dive the hell out of them if you want to on Lucio. Get a little bit of that DPS Lucio up in there. But let's talk about some of the other options you can play besides Zen. I'm not going to mention Zen too much. We already talked about him. Ana and Mercy are fine. Mercy's going to be good, especially if you have a pocket. So like if you have like a Hanzo or an Echo, something that you really want to pocket, Mercy's probably going to be really good. And especially if you're playing Wrecking Ball, Mercy, that mobility is going to be fantastic on Wrecking Ball. And then Ana can be good as a replacement for BAP. Now, I really think that BAP is so damn strong right now for not a lot of work, and Ana needs a lot of work to get her value. That being said, if you really want to play Ana, nanoing a Rein into the enemy team and him getting speed boost can still just win team fights by itself. So I wouldn't fault you for playing this character. She still has a high win rate. She still has a pretty high pick rate, but maybe if you want those easier wins, Baptiste is the person that you should be picking, or just filling between BAP and Ana, maybe swapping back and forth depending on what the enemy team is playing. Both of these characters can definitely carry you to a higher rank. So there's a lot of viable options in the support category right now. But do yourself a favor, if y'all want to master any of these characters, definitely go check out the GameLeap website in the links down below. We have high quality in-depth guides over Zarya, Rein, BAP, Lucio, Zen, McCree, Wrecking Ball, Ana, Mercy, Tracer, Sigma, Winston. I'm not going to read them all. We have them over every single one of them. So go check them out in the links down below. But I love yo faces. I hope you enjoyed the video. And that's all I got for you today. I'm Coach Mills, and see you next time.